Phil Mickelson has done something no one expected. He has gotten his hands on internal PGA Tour documents that detail exactly what the Tour is planning for 2028. And what those documents reveal changes everything. Massive player pay cuts, a complete restructuring of professional golf. And the people who run the sport are trying to keep it quiet. These are not rumors. These are internal documents that outline the Tour's actual plans. Plans that would slash earnings for dozens of players. Plans that would create a two-tier system where only the top stars get paid like stars. Plans that would leave the rest fighting for scraps. Mickelson has been golf's most controversial figure for years. He left for LIV Golf. He was suspended. He was vilified. But now he's the one exposing the truth. And the documents he's revealed show something the Tour never wanted anyone to see. The Tour is calling it reform. They're calling it necessary. But the numbers tell a different story. And those numbers are devastating. So what exactly is in these documents? What did Mickelson find? And why are the Tour's own players furious about what's coming? But here's what the Tour never wanted anyone to see. The documents don't just show pay cuts. They show a plan that was years in the making. Do you think Mickelson is doing the right thing by exposing these documents? Drop a comment and let me know. And if you want to understand what this really means for the sport, hit subscribe, because this story is just getting started. That question leads us to the documents themselves. What exactly did Mickelson get his hands on? The documents are the PGA Tour's internal planning for the 2028 season, and they lay out a complete restructuring of professional golf. The centerpiece of the plan is a two-tier system. Starting in 2028, the Tour splits into two separate series. The first is the Championship Series. This is for the elite players, the top names, the ones who move the needle. The second is the Challenger Series. This is for everyone else. And here's where the numbers get ugly. Championship Series events will have purses of at least $20 million. Challenger Series events will have purses of just $4 million. $4 million. Currently, most full-field PGA Tour events have purses of $9 million or more. So a player who falls into the Challenger Series isn't just taking a small hit. They're watching their earning potential get cut by more than half. The documents also reveal other changes. Field sizes at full field events will drop from 156 players to 144. Smaller events will shrink from 132 to 120. And the number of fully exempt tour cards will be slashed from 125 to 100. That means 25 players who currently have guaranteed status on tour will have nothing of the sort in 2028. They'll be fighting for spots, fighting for starts, fighting for a chance to earn anything at all. The Tour has tried to explain these changes. They blamed pace of play, but players aren't buying it. Veterans like Lucas Glover have called the explanation insulting. Matt Fitzpatrick publicly backed him, saying it's pathetic that the pace of play issue comes up every year and nothing ever gets done. So if pace of play isn't the real reason, what is? The field cuts and the tour cards tell you part of the story. But the real bombshell is what happens to the players who can't keep up. The answer to that question starts with Phil Mickelson himself. And to understand what he revealed, you need to understand who he is in this story. Mickelson has been golf's most polarizing figure for years. He was the beloved veteran, the fan favorite. But then he left for LIV Golf. He signed a deal reportedly worth $200 million, and the PGA Tour suspended him. They cut ties. They erased him from their history in many ways. He became public enemy number one in the eyes of the Tour establishment. But now he's the one holding the documents, the one exposing what the Tour didn't want anyone to see. What Mickelson actually revealed goes beyond the numbers. The documents show the Tour's internal discussions, the strategy behind the changes, and that strategy is calculated. The Tour knew exactly what they were doing. LIV Golf is done. The Saudi funding ends after this season. The existential threat that forced the Tour to raise purses is gone. So without competition, the Tour is pulling back. They're cutting purses. They're reducing fields. They're tightening the pyramid. And they're calling it reform. Mickelson's argument is simple. The Tour used the threat of LIV to justify higher purses. They raised expectations. But the moment the threat disappeared, they took it all back. They're using the LIV collapse as cover to slash player earnings. The documents prove this was a financial strategy, a calculated plan to protect the Tour's bottom line at the expense of the players who stayed loyal. Peter Jacobson, a longtime golf analyst, put it bluntly. He said the tour would be smart to reduce purses by 20%, and that's exactly what they're doing. Except they're reducing purses for the Challenger Series by more than 50%. So the question becomes obvious. If the tour is doing this intentionally, who actually pays the price? Mickelson has revealed the tour's calculation, but the real story is who gets crushed by it. That question brings us to the players themselves, and the answer is devastating for most of them. Let's start with Scottie Scheffler. He's the world #1, the best player on the planet. He has 4 major championships. He sits on the Player Advisory Council. He supported the plan. He believes the championship series will create better events. For him, the new system is not a threat. It's an opportunity. But Scheffler is not the one who will suffer. Rory McIlroy also backed the changes. He called them necessary. He said the tour needs to evolve. McIlroy is safe. He'll always be in the championship series. He'll always play for $20 million. He has nothing to fear. But what about the players who aren't Scheffler or McIlroy? Now consider the middle tier. These are the players ranked roughly 50th to 125th in the world. These are the guys who grind every week, who travel to every tournament, who fight to make cuts and earn enough to keep their cards. They're not superstars, but they're the backbone of the tour. For them, the new system is a nightmare. Lucas Glover is a perfect example. He's a major champion. He's a veteran. Glover called the changes insulting. He said the tour's explanation about pace of play is a lie. He said players aren't stupid. Matt Fitzpatrick, another major winner, agreed with Glover. He said it's pathetic that the tour keeps using the same excuses. Pace of play has been an issue forever, he said. Nothing ever changes. Maverick McNeely, a younger player, raised another issue. He said there's a debate the tour has skipped over. The debate about what the Challenger Series actually means for the sport, about whether it creates a permanent underclass. These players are the ones who will pay the price. They're the ones who will lose their cards if they slip. They're the ones who will fight for $4 million while the stars play for $20 million. Scheffler and McIlroy will be fine. But the middle tier and the bottom tier are staring into the abyss. And that bottom tier is where the real damage happens. The players outside the top 100, the ones who are fighting just to keep their cards. Under the new system, 25 of them will lose their fully exempt status. They'll have to qualify for events. And if they make it, they'll be competing for purses that are less than half of what they are today. The Challenger Series is being called a glorified Corn Ferry event by some insiders. That's not a compliment. The Corn Ferry Tour is the developmental tour. Now the PGA Tour is creating a second tier that looks a lot like the minor leagues. For young players coming up, the path just got much harder. For veterans trying to extend their careers, the road just got steeper. Currently, there are 125 fully exempt players on tour. In 2028, there will be 100. That's a 20% reduction in guaranteed status. The math is brutal. But here's the part that makes it even worse. The timing. The timing is what makes this feel like a betrayal. LIV Golf is finished. The Saudi money is gone after this season. The tour no longer has to offer massive purses to keep players from leaving. The threat is neutralized. And the moment it disappeared, the tour started cutting. Think about what happened during the LIV era. The tour raised purses dramatically. They created signature events with $20 million prizes. But the documents show that was never the full picture. The tour was always planning to pull back. They were always planning to reset the system once the threat was gone. They were using LIV to justify the increases, but they always intended to take the money back. Now they're doing exactly that. And they're calling it reform. The tour's own language gives it away. They talk about scarcity, simplicity, and parity. Those are nice words, but what they actually mean is fewer players getting paid, simpler structures that protect the top, and parity that only applies to the elite. The players at the bottom are being sacrificed to protect the players at the top, and everyone in the middle is being squeezed. The moment LIV collapsed, the tour started cutting. But some players aren't staying quiet about it. The revolt is building. And it's not just a few voices. Glover has been one of the most outspoken critics. He called the tour's explanation insulting. He said players know when they're being lied to, and they're tired of it. Fitzpatrick backed him up. He said it's pathetic that the tour keeps using the same excuses year after year. McIlroy, who supports the changes, has expressed concerns. He said he worries that some events might lose their status if a sponsor doesn't pony up $30 million. He knows the system is fragile. McNeely raised another issue. He said there's a debate the tour has skipped over about whether the Challenger Series creates a permanent underclass. The locker room is divided. Some players support the changes. Others are openly hostile, and the divide is getting wider. Mickelson is feeding the fire. He's using the documents to rally opposition. He's pointing to the internal discussions and saying, look, they knew what they were doing. They planned this. The locker room is split. The tour is spinning. And at the center of it all is a question nobody wants to answer. That question is about the future of the sport itself. The two-tier system creates a permanent divide. The Championship Series is for the stars. The Challenger Series is for everyone else. Young players now face a much harder path. They have to qualify. They have to compete for smaller purses and limited spots. Some tournaments will lose their status. Events that used to be meaningful will become second tier. Sponsors will have to decide whether it's worth investing in the Challenger Series. And if they don't, those events could disappear entirely. The alliance with the DP World Tour is also threatened. The European Tour has been a partner for decades, but if the PGA Tour creates a closed system, that partnership could fall apart. This isn't just about money. It's about whether the sport becomes a closed shop for the elite or remains open to anyone who can compete. The tour is betting everything on the stars. They're betting that fans will keep watching if Scheffler, McIlroy, and Spieth are playing. They're betting that the system will hold. But what if it doesn't? What if the stars get hurt? What if fans lose interest in a system that feels rigged against the majority of players? The documents show the tour knows these risks. They've discussed them internally, but they're moving forward anyway. The tour is gambling with the sport's future, and the players who trusted them are the ones who stand to lose everything. Now here's the irony that makes this story almost unbelievable. The man exposing all of this is Phil Mickelson, the same man the tour suspended, the same man they vilified, the same man they tried to erase from their history. Mickelson was public enemy number one when he joined LIV. He was called a traitor, a sellout. He was suspended indefinitely. Now he's the one holding the documents, the one exposing the tour's secrets, the one showing the world what the people in charge were really planning. The man the tour tried to destroy is now the one holding up a mirror, and what it reflects isn't pretty. The tour's response has been silence. They won't engage with him. They're hoping the story goes away. But the documents are out there, and the players are paying attention. Mickelson has always said the tour was greedy. He's always said they put their interests above the players. Now he has proof, and whether you love him or hate him, you can't ignore what he's revealed. Mickelson exposed the documents. The tour is scrambling, but the biggest question hasn't been answered yet. That question is about the players. What will they do? Will they unionize? The PGA Tour has never had a players' union in the way other sports do, but the tension is building. If the players feel betrayed, they might organize. They might demand a seat at the table. Unionization would give players collective bargaining power. Will sponsors stick with the Challenger Series? If the purses are small and the fields are weak, sponsors might walk away. Some tournaments that have been on the schedule for decades could disappear. Will fans care about the second tier? The tour is betting that fans will watch the Championship Series and ignore the Challenger Series. But if the gap becomes too wide, fans might stop caring about the tour altogether. The tour is making a massive bet. They're betting that the stars will carry the sport. The documents are public. The players are divided. The tour is under pressure, and the fate of professional golf hangs in the balance. So where does that leave us? The 2028 season is 2 years away. 2 years until it takes effect. 2 years for the players to organize. Right now, the tour is in crisis. The players don't trust the leadership. The fans are confused. And Mickelson is winning the battle of public opinion in ways nobody expected. The documents have changed the conversation. They've shown that the tour's explanations were always a cover, and they've revealed a financial strategy that prioritizes the tour's bottom line over the players who make the sport what it is. The players who grind every week, the players who entertain us and inspire us, they're the ones being sacrificed. The top players will be fine. Scheffler, McIlroy, Spieth. They'll keep winning, they'll keep earning. But the players below them, the ones who are fighting to keep their cards, they're the ones who will pay the price. And that's the tragedy of these documents. That's what Mickelson exposed. Not just a strategy, but a decision to sacrifice the many for the benefit of the few. The tour is hoping nobody notices. They're hoping the players accept the changes and move on. But the documents exist. The numbers don't lie. And the players aren't going to forget what they've seen. So what do you think? Is the tour making a mistake by forcing these cuts, or is this necessary for the sport's survival? I want to hear your take. And if you want to stay on top of this story as it unfolds, make sure you're subscribed, because there's a lot more coming.